It's blowing a gale outside, so welcome back to the spare room and welcome to Woke Watch. And if you're watching this video, by now, you know the drill. It's very rare that I drink caffeine because it sends me a bit mental. But when I do, I try and find small independent coffee shops because I look to the past with rose-tinted spectacles, remembering the heady days when coffee came in black or white and with or without sugar. And if you ordered it anything other than white with two, people would think you'd been through some sort of trauma. Probably, and I say probably because I didn't bother to check, the largest chain of coffee stores is Starbucks. And in the USA, they've got a problem with their employees wanting to unionise. And I'm not going to say anything one way or the other. I'm going to stumble over that line, but fuck it. However, some of these employees are such woke entitled crybabies. There's a video which has gone viral. It's around 2 minutes long, it's now coming up, and usually I'd say that laughing at someone who is in pain is cruel. But for this case, I'll make an exception.
People wonder why we need a union at Starbucks, and I am literally about to quit. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but I really want to. I almost walked out today, and I'm crying in the back room right now, and I almost cried on the floor. It's just... I'm like a full-time student. I get scheduled for 25 hours a week, and on weekends they schedule me the entire day, open to close. I'm on the schedule for 8.5 hours, both Saturday and Sunday. I'm 3.5 hours into my shift. There's so many customers, and we have 4 people on the floor all day. Only 5 people were put on the schedule, and somebody had to call out, and there are 4 people running the whole store, and there's so many customers, and there's possibly scheduled 5 people. We only have 13 people employed at this store, and there's so many customers, and we don't have fair scheduling. Managers don't care about us. Our manager was supposed to come in this weekend, and he took himself off the schedule, so he wouldn't be able to be held accountable for calling out. He just literally tore down the schedule that he was scheduled on and put up a new schedule where he wasn't on the schedule. Also, he couldn't have even seen that he was scheduled in the first place because he didn't want to be held accountable for not wanting to come in. They don't want to help us. We need a union because this can't happen. This can't happen. We need fair scheduling. We need managers to hold themselves accountable for helping their workers. They refuse to turn mobile orders off. We need the liberty to be able to do that because there's so many mobile orders and I need to get through all of them. And then people are yelling at me because I don't have their orders ready and they don't know what to do. And a customer was misgendering me today, really badly. I didn't have their order ready. And so they were just talking to each other, and they're like, she's clearly incompetent. I have a full mustache and beard. What the fuck? I don't get accommodations for being neurodivergent. I don't... I can't use... people get mad at me for using my sick time. I don't even know what to do anymore. I'm at my wit's end with this job. I really am.
Where to begin? Well, that individual is a member of Generation Z or Gen Z if you're in the new world. And I'm painting with a rather broad brush here, but they are the most spoilt, mollycoddled generation ever, and it's not their fault. They've grown up always having had access to the internet. They've had participation awards and designated safe spaces, and they are also the generation going into the workforce much later than anyone else. They haven't been babysitters or had paper rounds or cleaned cars. They get their first job in their 20s and then the real world hits them. So let's break down some of the points made by the overly distressed employee. Firstly, I'll acknowledge that being a full-time student and working 25 hours a week, that's hard, but it's what every other generation has already done. Now, by comparison, I was born in the late 1970s. I'm from the tail end of Generation X. My primary school didn't even have heating, and when I was 16 years old, I was working 60 hours a week as a fucking forklift driver. Today, that would be illegal, but we just got on with it. And when Mrs. Disgruntled and I were saving up to get married, I would regularly work 90 to 100 hours a week. This woke person is complaining about doing 8.5-hour shifts. That's a normal working day. So the video starts off with the employee saying they're going to quit. Then quit. You don't need to unionise. If you don't like the job, get another one. There's a labour shortage in the US at the moment. And saying that managers don't care about them, well, get fucking used to it. The best thing I ever did was getting out of management because I didn't like the person I was becoming. And more often than not, if you see a team of employees who are downcast and dejected and depressed, it'll be a bad manager. Not always, but often, someone who wants a job where they control others will be a fucking sadist. Then we have the issue of there being too many customers. If there are many customers, that's a good thing. It means the business is thriving. And I can't believe I'm going to have to say this, but if you work in a service industry and you're not providing said service, customers are going to be pissed off. We have a finite amount of time on God's earth and we don't want to spend it standing around waiting. Besides which, if these are people who are queuing up for their morning caffeine hit, they're going to be in a bad fucking mood anyway. So how about having an allowance for being neurodivergent? Well, sorry to be harsh. If you're doing a job and you have a condition that affects your ability to do that job, get a different fucking job. Neurodivergence covers things like ADHD, autism, and the most common one is dyslexia. But again, these woke Gen Zers don't know how fucking lucky they are that we now live in a world where everything is labelled and medicalised. Because I'm dyslexic, I didn't know I was dyslexic until I was in my mid-20s. Because when I was at school, if you couldn't get your letters in the right order, you weren't dyslexic, you were thick. And having ADHD, that was just being a little shit. And finally, we get to being misgendered. Because of course, that woke sod is trans. And I'll play nicely, he's trans, meaning he's got pretty much every card in the victimhood deck. And if you are trans and you're watching this, I wish you the best on your journey. But he's not really a man. He's a woman taking testosterone. And sadly, suicidality among trans people peaks after they've had treatment. Because often, the trans thing is masking a much more serious psychological issue. So they change genders, but the problem's still there. That's just tragic. But this is Woke Watch, and I've barely mentioned wokeness. And that's because I didn't have to. This is a near perfect example. In the video, we have a person who in most non-Western cultures would be put straight into an asylum and would have horrible things done to them. And they don't realise how fucking privileged they are. This is an individual who has a job that allows them to take part in higher education in the richest country in the world, a job which they are free to quit at any time. But instead blames all of their shortcomings on everyone else. It's Starbucks, it's the manager, it's the customers. I'm a victim, and that is wokeness. The crying routine makes them a victim, which gives them an excuse for their aggression. So let's end with a quote. Wokeness gives people a shield to be mean and cruel, armoured in false virtue. That's from Elon Musk, the new owner of Twitter. As ever, thanks for watching.